Should players play many different positions or should they specialize in one or just a few positions? That is our main topic. Welcome to this week's Get Together, the 80/20 Baseball Podcast, the longest running weekly youth baseball focused podcast. That said, if you're listening to this podcast and you want more advanced stuff, I did have a varsity baseball coach reach out recently, bought the 80/20 baseball coaching plan, the coaching system, implemented it with their team, had a great season and some great highlights, including an all-state player. And one of the biggest differences between our podcast and other podcasts is we work really hard to coach up the 360-degree approach to coaching, never forgetting what the main goals of youth sports are. In this episode, we have our main topic as discussed earlier and two other small subtopics, things to keep in mind to get us better. Quick review. Last week, we talked about the number of 300 batting average hitters decreasing at the major league level, and I think at all levels that are embracing this power prioritization kind of philosophy or goal, trying to get more power, bat speed, exit velocity, launch angle. And as most of you know, you listened last week, we dove into this. I wanted to tie up a couple loose ends. Having a high batting average, that's awesome. Of course, it's not a bad thing. But if you want a stat that is more closely associated, more closely connected to how much a player helps their team score runs, OPS is your stat. And the good thing is, Game Changer makes OPS readily available. All the scoring apps that we already use make OPS readily available. And even if you have to do it with a calculator, it's really easy to calculate. On base plus slugging percentage. Does it have slight flaws? Sure. But every time I hear one of these front office sabermetric gurus talk about these vast algorithms, these mega algorithms they use to quantify that boil down to like weighted runs created plus, which is essentially the best or one of the best publicly available stats that most accurately talks about how many runs a player contributes or adds to their team's success. It's commonly agreed upon to hear all these front office sabermetric data analysts say that OPS is probably the closest like base level stat, the closest standard level stat. It's the most accurate stat when compared to these super stats that they've come up with and developed, with their crazy math. And for those of you that are old school coaches, Branch Rickey back in the 50s was talking about slugging and ISO on base percentage on chalkboards. So if you like that old school approach, OPS is old school. So I wanted to tie that together because I did get an email, Coach Bo, what's a base level stat, an easy to find stat that's most closely associated with how much a player helps their team score more runs? OPS, on base plus slugging. So let's get down with OPS and leverage that to assess your batters, your hitters, your team's hitting approaches, the effectiveness of your batting practice routines, your stations, your drills. Now, should players play many different positions or should they specialize in one or a few positions? How should this be handled and should there be a different approach for different levels? I think to make the best decision, like anything in life, to make a great decision, we need to understand the trade-offs, the pros and cons. We live in a world where we love true false answers, yet we live in a world where very few, a microscopic amount of answers or solutions are binary, are true false, are yes no, for a lot of reasons, of course. So we need to understand the trade-offs, the pros and cons, and we need to connect that with our personal goals. What's best for each player, each team, each level, each age group. There's definitely no perfect answer for every player, every team, or every level. And it's important that we understand that no matter which choice we make, there will be trade-offs. That said, generally speaking, as we know, position specialization typically progresses like an inverted funnel in sports. At younger ages, it's more common to see kids play more positions, a wider variety of positions. As they move to higher levels, right, it's more common for them to play fewer positions or just one position. It's more common to see them go from generalist to specialist as they move up levels. Now that's the obvious part of the equation. However, there are a variety of trade-offs and pros and cons that we often don't fully consider. Let's go through these trade-offs, these pros and cons, and from there, you'll be able to make a better decision as a coach, as a parent, as a player, for those players listening, of what you want to do and how to approach it and what best fits your situation. This isn't going to cover every single pro and con for every single kid, but this is a really good list to start with. Number one, when a player plays more positions, they will inherently develop a better understanding of how the overall game works and how all the defensive positions are interconnected. Playing more positions gives them a broader game understanding, which can help them when they get older, when when they'll likely play fewer positions. The flip side to that, when a player focuses on fewer positions, they're more likely, not necessarily, but more likely to deepen their knowledge of that position or those positions at a faster rate. The compounding skill improvement is faster. Also, a large part of confidence comes through competence. Some players may enjoy baseball more when they specialize in fewer positions and can speed up their improvement at those positions. Competence breeds confidence. A lot of elite defenders develop almost subconscious anticipatory habits after thousands of repetitions, giving them that confidence, that natural confidence and competence to play that position. Now, flipping the coin over, a variety can lead to an increase in engagement. Some players may enjoy mixing it up, playing a variety of positions, especially at a younger age. Also, playing more positions may increase the likelihood that a player discovers the position that they're best suited for. For example, there are some kids that never play catcher. They never catch a single inning in youth baseball. How do we know when they're older that that wasn't the position they were best suited for? Maybe that was the position they would have liked more than any other in the long run. Maybe that was their ticket to playing at the college or pro level. Moreover, having experience at a wider variety of positions also gives players more versatility as they get older. Maybe the position or the few positions that they specialized in when they were young end up being blocked by older or more talented players as they move up levels. So instead of learning a new position from scratch, having played more positions when they were younger, their speed of adjustment and adaptation will likely be much faster and likely increase their chances of making the team or earning playing time. Players that play a variety of positions will likely have a stronger sense of empathy for those players playing other positions, their teammates. More specifically, a player that has played catcher knows firsthand how challenging being a catcher can be, and no matter how good they were at catching, when they were catcher, made mistakes, almost without a doubt. Having played other positions such as catcher or pitcher, especially catcher and pitcher, when they move to shortstop or center field, that player will be much more likely to have empathy when the pitcher walks 4 hitters in a row because they know the inherent challenges that come along with pitching. They've felt it. They've probably been in that situation. Or when the shortstop watches the catcher commit 3 pass balls in 1 inning, that shortstop, who has experience catching and likely had pass balls themselves, will have more empathy having walked or crouched in their teammates' cleats, their teammates' spikes. Having players play a variety of positions can help level the social hierarchy on the team. Those premium positions carry some status, and rotating them can reduce early clicks and also help protect some of these late bloomers' confidence. Flipping the coin back over, some kids thrive more so when they have a clearly defined role or roles. When they have fewer roles, because it gives them less decision fatigue, less anxiety, a little more comfort, puts them a little more at ease knowing what to expect from that position. Also, having the kids play a wider variety of positions logistically for coaches is more challenging. It adds another level of complexity. Now, that said, when it comes to logistics, I think it's pretty easy nowadays to handle this, to make sure the positions are rotated evenly and easily distributed relatively evenly across the board. But having players play a much wider variety of positions does present another coaching challenge that we'll get to in a minute. Now let's talk about a hybrid way of approaching this. We could do what I call cluster rotations. So like group positions by skill demands, like infielders, outfielders together. Maybe in one game you just rotate the outfielders, maybe you just rotate the infielders. There's more connectedness there. It'll take less bandwidth and probably allow them to play a little bit faster and adjust faster because they're going from, say, left field to center field, which is much more similar than going from left field to first base. This helps keep continuity while still incorporating variety. That's one option, so a cluster rotation. Another way of doing this is have players rotate between one outfield position, one infield position, and then pitcher or catcher. That's another way of doing it. Again, this all depends on the player and how you want to set it up. You can try different things. One thing to keep in mind is rotating pitchers and catchers. There is some volume management there that needs to be kept in mind. Those two positions clearly have more wear and tear. So that's something to keep in mind when you rotate pitchers and catchers and kind of making sure that, managing that volume. Now, going back to what I mentioned a minute ago about coaching quality and some challenges that come about with these different approaches, there is that challenge of having to coach up every kid on every position. There are ways to scale this, focus on the fundamentals, things that transfer, like a shortstop and a second baseman, or even a first baseman, third baseman could be the relay person. But like the 80-20 baseball coaching plan, the relay drill has everybody involved. Everybody gets a ton of game-like reps, competitive game-like reps in the 80-20 baseball relay drill. So it's transferable. And this is a really good approach in general, coaching the fundamentals, like fielding ground balls. Now, a ground ball to third base and a ground ball to first base are going to have some variability, but there are some fundamental things like relay throws, catching fly balls, pop-ups, accurate throws, scooping short hops, fielding ground balls backhanded, charge and flip. There's a lot of similar things there that are not strictly position specific. Pretty much every drill in the 80-20 baseball coaching system does this for this very reason. Largely because of this reason, also because you want to scale quality game like reps. You can't show preferential treatment to one position. Another thing to keep in mind, the pro game, the college game, even at the high school game now, it's valuing versatility. So that's something to keep in mind. The Ben Zobrist effect. For those of you that have fantasy baseball experience years ago, Ben Zobrist was so valuable because you could plug him into any position. And all he had to do was be slightly better than the next best person at any of those positions, and it was considered an upgrade. And you could plug him anywhere. If there's an injury or somebody's not there, that versatility can come in really handy. Another thing to keep in mind, if we specialize too early, if we have players specializing in very few positions early on. We all know there are late bloomers, and maybe a kid blooms late and outgrows a position. Maybe a kid gets faster when he gets older and becomes a better potential outfielder. So late bloomers versus early developers. Pigeonholing kids into certain positions young is in a way neglecting the possible late development, maybe a growth spurt, etc. So that's something to keep in mind because every kid's going to be different. If you're a tall parent or a kid has parents that are really tall, but they're undersized right now at 11, the percentages say they're probably going to be pretty tall. You got a 6'5" dad and a 5'11" mom, and that kid's at the 55th percentile in height for the 5th grade. There's a good chance he ends up in the 90th percentile and thus might outgrow shortstop or maybe outgrow catcher in terms of height. Maybe not. But either way, it's something to keep in mind. Now, here's something that I think we need to avoid at all costs when it comes to kids specializing in positions. Parents and coaches clinging, leveraging, even unknowingly, their kid's position as a status increaser. The parents and coaches should not have their identity invested in the position that their kid plays. My kid's a shortstop. There should be 100% detachment between the parent and their self-worth and their self-identity and the kid, much less the kid's position. And the kids pay the price here. The developmental cost is paid by the player. So that's definitely something that we need to be aware of. It happens. The my kid's the shortstop attitude. No place for that. And if you are tying your kid's position or playing time as a youth athlete into how you feel about yourself as a person, we need to look in the mirror for a long time until that gets resolved, fixed, and eliminated. All right. So I thought that was something that definitely needed to be addressed here. Now, all that said, there's an old adage in baseball that says, if you can hit, they'll find a place for you. If you can hit, they'll find a spot for you on the field, or DH. The biggest factor in continuing to play at a higher level, not the only factor, of course, but the largest factor in continuing to play at a higher level for position players is whether they can swing the bat or not. And when I say swing the bat, I mean their whole approach. In fact, their hitting approach might be more important than just their pure swing. I'd also add to that, becoming a better overall athlete and focusing on that at a young age not only helps as a hitter, but also makes it much easier to play any defensive position. At younger ages, rather than making a huge deal about what position a player is playing or what position my kid is playing, I would recommend this, focusing on becoming the best hitter you can be and the best athlete you can be, and then mastering the defensive fundamentals that play at any position. Arm strength and accuracy, become a great receiver, catching the ball cleanly, field ground balls cleanly, catch fly balls and pop-ups at a high rate. So I really hope this broke it down. And from here, you can make the best decision for you, your team, your kids, your players. I thought it was really important to break down as many of the pros and cons as possible, as many trade-offs as we could here. And then I shared with you my final thoughts on it, the approach I would go with at the younger levels. All right, that went a little bit long. So I'm going to take the other two subtopics that we had today and tie them on to next week. It was an interesting quote by the minor league home run leader right now, and what he said he's doing as part of his swing that I thought a lot of young hitters could benefit from hearing. And also something that's happened almost 15,000 times this major league season, and how knowing this will help us when we go out to our next game as a youth baseball coach or a baseball coach of any level. So we'll get into that next week. Head over to 8020baseball.com. You want to be a great coach, the fastest way to having all the great drills and everything you need to be a great coach. No more wasting time, no more guesswork. You're going to go from new coach or a lesser experienced coach or even experienced coach to a great or elite coach. The 80-20 baseball coaching systems. There's the drill system, which has all the top drills, which has every team drill. These are easy to implement drills and they are the best of the best. Can't find them anywhere else. You can't find them on YouTube, any of that. And then there's the whole coaching system, which has everything all in one spot. Easy to access. You can start using it today. And that's right there at 8020baseball.com. So until next week, you can head over there and let's keep taking care of our health so we can be at our best for our families, our close friends. Let's take this information out there like the great Tony Gwynn with 2 strikes. Let's look to put it into play where we can. You all take care. Until next week, adios.